Hey, go people. That's a good one. All right, let me just get this out of the way so you guys don't have to waste your time watching. I'm going to agree with the cops on this one. Rick, you're a bootlicker. You think they're all... Whatever. I'm just telling you, on this case, I'm with the cops. I'm going to talk about deadly force. Was it deadly force? Was it authorized? I'm a little iffy on that. Legal-wise, I'm okay with the cops' action. I'm okay with how they handle it. Legal-wise, man, we might have some issues. Let's take a look at what happened here.
An emergency.
Yes, somebody speak Spanish, please.
Sí, señor, ¿cómo le puedo ayudar?
Vamos a hacer un reporte de que acá en la Clinton y la Virgil estaba ellos acá.
Okay, so I'm just going to pass by this guy's call in. Basically, this guy calls in and says, I think there's a gangster. He says he stopped. He's on a bicycle. He stopped parked car with a young woman inside with like 3 people, pulled a gun on him. Crazy. I came by wanting my car. He says, what can I do besides call you? That's a problem. See, he ought to be able to have a damn gun in his pocket and then he can defend himself. This guy, this grown man is scared, saying I'm scared, and, you know, I'm just a working man, but it's bullshit that this guy's riding around on a bike with a mask, pulling a gun on people. So he's by the fire department. He says he's scared. He's by the fire department.
Okay, so ya no ve el hombre.
Ya lo veo.
I came over here trembling and scared because the guy pulled a gun. Look, I got a tip for all you tough gangsters and all you tough bald cops. If you ride up on a bicycle on me and pull a gun, you're going to get a physics lesson on mass, speed, and impact, and all kind of neat little things I'm going to give you an education on. If you roll up on a bicycle on me when I'm in a car moving and you pull a gun on me. That's just a little pro tip for you gangsters out there.
Me vengo temblando.
El hombre es americano, que tiene el hombre.
Como ves, y una máscara alta, lo mía uno. Altura como...
He calls the guy a loser, I think.
¿Cuánto mide altura o peso?
Altura como 6. 6 y peso como 150 libras.
I thought he called the guy a loser. Oh, yeah. This loser takes out a gun, humiliates one. So... I like the guy who's calling in. I'm just kind of sad that he doesn't have a gun and he's got to be scared and he can't defend himself because some punk has a gun and he can't.
Okay.
So this man is hiding in a car scared at the fire department calling government because he has to depend on government to help him in freaking left-wing California where nobody can have a gun. And then I want you to realize... Watch how many cops show up when a cop has to contact somebody with a gun. All right, here we go. So here goes a little criminal with a little tan pants and black shirt. Described him, bike, tan shorts, black shirt. They got the guy. The fact that he's fleeing and running kind of corroborates that he's probably engaged in illegal activity. Now, they interviewed this guy's mom afterwards, and she was like, he's really a good kid, and he probably wasn't running from the police. He just didn't hear the sirens and didn't know they were police. Okay, that's the mom's statement.
Ready?
So they try to do a forward pit on this dude. I thought it was kind of funny. They try to cut him off. I'm kind of okay with this. Now, from a police perspective, the cop can't say, well, I guess he could, because in the law, whether a felony has really been committed or not, if the officer acts with the belief that a felony was committed, he's covered. So the fact that this guy was supposedly armed and pulled a gun on somebody, technically, by the law, if an officer believes that, he can use deadly force or lethal force to stop or catch this guy because he's a danger, he's already committed a crime, pulled a gun, he may be armed, he may be pulling on someone else, etc. So I mean, this is a very muddy issue, and it's very easy for people to come here and go, well, Rick, he didn't know that, and he should have, and he could have, and the law said, and just to argue. But I'm just telling you, this is kind of a complex thing on whether or not the cops can technically use their car to stop this guy, because normally using a car is deadly force. Now, I would argue, as if I was testifying as use force expert on this, that the car wasn't used to run over or impact him. It was used to stop his forward movement, and if he ran into him, it would stop his forward movement. There was little to no risk of him getting run over. Therefore, I would say this semi-pit maneuver pulling in front of him was not deadly force. Now, had they ran from behind and ran him over, I would say that probably is deadly force, because the likelihood of him falling under a tar and you running over him and causing serious bodily injury and or death would be much greater if you hit him from the rear. But putting in front, I'm not sure I would say this is deadly force. Now, obviously, anybody can argue it was, and it was a car, and it's bigger, and the danger and the likelihood of getting hurt is high, and you can go back and forth. But I'm just trying to get you, to look at this with a critical eye and kind of reason. So the guy does a good bike maneuver and does it, which is good, because what these cops pretty much did is like, there's no way this guy can say now, I didn't know the cops were after me. I didn't know they were police. I didn't see the lights. I didn't see the marked unit, and I didn't hear the siren. All those excuses are kind of null and void right now. I think they were null and void before, but somebody would argue it, especially his mom. Now, even his mom would have a hard time arguing that he didn't see him. Okay, so right here, the cop pulls up and hits him with the door. And when I saw this part of the video, I was okay with it. And my justification with this would be like, this wasn't deadly force. This was less lethal force. They kept their car on one side, and the door actually knocked the guy away from the car. Somebody would argue that wrecking on a bicycle could kill him. Well, if he was that worried about wrecking, he would be wearing a helmet and wouldn't be running from the cops. But somebody could argue that hitting him with the car could make him fall on the ground. He could have bumped his head. It could have caused serious injury. Therefore, what this cop did was deadly force. This is a really iffy right here. I still don't think it rises, in my mind, common sense, it doesn't rise to the level of deadly force. Is it force that people are like, whoa, man, that's kind of iffy. Could have hurt him. Yeah, tough shit. He pulled a gun on somebody. Or it was reported he pulled a gun. But it was reported with the description and the specific fact given by the 911 caller and the fact that he's running and trying to avoid the cops. Totality of circumstances is, I'm more likely to believe he is involved in criminal activity and probably pulled the gun than he is not. But again, all those facts need to be argued out and put on a scale in a court of law, etc. So he bumps him here and knocks him down. And they stop the car. He moves away from the car. No danger of him getting run over. Again, somebody's going to argue this was excessive force. I don't have a problem with this at all. I'm 100% with the cops. This is before I heard their conversation. In the next part, we're going to hear what they're talking about inside the car before they do it. And it even makes me back them up and say they're even more right than they are when I just saw this part.
Traffic is continuing southbound Virgil from Melrose.
I'm kind of surprised that nobody has their gun out. This is LA, and crime is high, and this guy is reported to have pulled a gun on somebody, and all these cops run up. I don't see one of them with their gun out.
Traffic is continuing south.
I think this guy has less lethal. Maybe that is his gun.
Virgil from Melrose.
So now I want you to see your tax dollars. Every time you hear, we need more tax money, we need more police, we don't have enough police, police is a dangerous job and we just need more police. I want you to guess now what all these cops are doing when something like this isn't happening. They're drinking coffee, eating donuts, or giving you pesky citizens tickets, or looking for some way to arrest a pesky citizen to justify all these cops. Watch how many cops show up. And there's a helicopter in the air too. Air 3 is there. So he's there. So we have a helicopter, all these police cars, and all these cops making all over 100 grand in LA. They all make over 100 grand a year. All these cops. And you people are like, we need more taxes. Government, is better with our money than we are. Therefore, we should give more of our money that we work for to government so they can spend it. It's just freaking absurd how people believe that shit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 2 in a unit, 13, 14, because you got air unit
All
up
units,
there.
both southbound Virgil, Melrose Avenue.
Nope, here comes another guy. So, man, there's a lot of hair missing. All right, here's Quotahar standing around. I was there. I did something. I stood with my hips up. All units, code 4. Code 4 is, in California, means no further assistance. We're stable. Stop units. Situations under control. That's basically what code 4 means. Most cops, when you roll up to somebody and say code 4, you're asking them, do they need you to stop and stay? Do they need help, or are they okay? So code 4 can also mean, I'm okay, move on. So usually when you're involved in an incident, after it stabilizes and the suspect in custody, you go code 4. That means all other units who are responding that think cops need help, you can stop. Not that these cops need help with all these cops here. Look how many cops got here this quick in a pursuit, running around. Look how many of you taxpayers' dollars, 100 grand more a year. Shit, when I say 100 grand, I'm talking about that's their salary. I'm not talking about the 150 grand in benefits, medical, dental, and retirement. So, I mean, this is $250,000 per cop just right here. And idiots will be voting this time because in Texas, we got Democrats running on, we need more tax money, we need to raise property taxes, we need a state tax, we need more money for schools, we need more money for police. Every year since I've been born, I've heard this same freaking story by government to grow. And for some reason, the idiots just keep lining up and voting for it. But I digress. Let's get back to copy. All right, so this is inside the car, and this is where I think the cops did a really good job of communicating, formulating a plan, deciding what to do. Now remember, and this is where all the freaking people that come here and go, a hairdresser needs a year of schooling, and to be a cop you only need 6 weeks or whatever. First of all, most academies are in the 6-month area. Second of all, there's also ongoing training and learning. Most cops in California have an associate's degree, a 2-year degree, if not a 4-year degree. So, I mean, for the people that come here and say somebody that cuts hair is smarter and more capable than a police officer who's carrying a gun, has to make a decision to use deadly force, has to know the law, has to know when he can use it, when he can't, has to go out there and deal with arguments and everything. To compare that job to somebody that puts chemicals in someone's hair and sits in a safe environment and gets paid to talk and listen to music in a safe environment, to me, just shows the ignorance of people that are comparing that. But that's the comparison that I always hear. And I'm not saying all cops are great and they're wonderful and they're all smart. I'm just saying the idiot comparison that people like to use because someone who cuts hair and does dye needs a year of schooling to get their cosmetology certificate, whatever, because they work with chemicals and they work with hazardous materials and they can burn people and cause medical problems if they do it wrong. So they have to get a year of schooling. Big freaking deal. To compare that job to a cop under stress, working and deciding to use deadly force or not use deadly force, decide if someone has a gun and if they are a threat, and do I want to get killed tonight and do I not, and how nice I want to be, and dealing with all the freaking policies and shit. And so don't even compare that shit to me. And I'm not saying all cops are great. I'll say that again. Here we go. These guys inside the car. So the cop's got his siren on. He's driving. He's, missing other parked cars and other obstacles. He's got to clear intersections as he runs through the intersection in case somebody doesn't see his lights and siren. He's avoiding all traffic hazards, and he's chasing this guy, and he's calling out on the radio the location, and he's talking to his partner, trying to develop a plan, all while driving, braking, steering, turning, and doing all this. Rick, cops are stupid and it's an easy job. Whatever, people. Come on. I mean, I got to give the devil his due. I'm not a big fan of the way cops treat people and the power they abuse, but come on, let's have a logical argument here.
I just cut him off? No, I don't know if I hit him with the car.
Okay, so here they're deciding.
I just cut him off?
So he's asking the guy, do I just cut him off? And the other guy is, I don't know if I hit him with the door or... So again, this shows the reasoning and the complex decisions in a high-risk situation that has to go on, which is why I say meat eaters usually do better in this, because although he's hyped up and he's driving and he's got the siren going and he's talking on the radio and he's watching the street signs because he has to call in a location and he's doing all this, he's also figuring out legal options. He's determining. This is what, when I talk about lag time is a big thing in police training, because lag time is the time it takes a person to process, is there a threat? If there is a threat, how do I handle it? If I have multiple options to handle it, how do I choose the best one? Once I decide the best one to use, then I enact and I start implementing that decision. That's called lag time, and that can happen in a second and a half, or it can happen in a minute. So, but right now, these guys kind of have time because they're riding, the guy's chasing, but they're still avoiding obstacles, talk on a radio, have to give out their location, avoid other officers, clear intersections, and now they're trying to decide what force can I use, are we justified, etc.
I don't know if I hit him with the door. Huh? Yep.
So the fact that these two officers don't know what they can do, I mean, that's okay. I mean, look, lawyers get to figure this out and judges get to figure this out in a courtroom in a safe environment after reading tons of documents and quoting, looking up case law, etc. Cops do this shit on the fly. So that's why they're sometimes given a lot of leeway to make mistakes, because they're doing this shit in the heat of the moment on the fly. So obviously they're not going to be as competent and sound as great as a lawyer in a suit in a safe courtroom arguing with a judge after he's had 3 interns research law for 6 months, and now a year later he gets in there and tells the cop how bad he is and how he made poor decisions. That's why the courts tend to give cops a break.
Don't hit him. Yeah.
So now the guy says, don't hit him. Don't hit him. So now we have conflicting. A few minutes ago, he's like, yeah, get the car, get around. Now he's like, don't hit him. So, and again, when you're asking another cop for their input, the guy driving is the one that does the action and is responsible for what he does. If the cop next to him says, run his ass over, and you run him over, you cannot say, he told me so. Now, it would get into if the guy next to him is his training officer, senior officer, and he's working under his control, or the sergeant next to him told him, it would give him a little bit of cover. But at the end of the day, when the music stops, whoever pulls the trigger, whoever runs over the guy, is ultimately responsible for justifying his decision. And his justification can't be, my partner said run him over, so I did. That just don't fly.
Yeah. What street is this? Madison. Huh? Madison. Madison Marathon. Hey, you better stop!
So, again, back to the complex things that when people think cops have an easy job. He's driving. Not only is he driving with one hand. He's talking. He's got a hand on the door ready to jump out. He's got to be thinking, I got to get my hand on my gun in case the guy pulls a gun. He's giving directions. He's talking to his partner. I mean, these are just, and to me, I love these. I love chaos. I love getting into the heat of the moment where there's chaos. That's where I function the best, because I'm just, just the way I talk. If you listen to me, I talk fast. I react fast. My mind goes 1,000 miles a second. So in chaotic situations, I'm kind of okay with that. You get better over time, because the more times you do it, the less you have a reaction to the chemical adrenaline rush. The more you have experience to draw from to kind of say, this is going to play out. I can calm down a little bit. Okay, I don't need to do this. No sense in getting in a hurry. No sense in doing. So you get better the more you do it. I always say experience is the best teacher. Now, obviously, if you have shit experiences and you're learning from that, then you're going to do a shit job. But like practice don't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. But anyway, here we go.
This is the police! Hey, just stop and we'll figure it out!
So he's driving. He's yelling over the siren. He's getting orders from dispatch. He's listening to the sergeant, listening to his partner. Helicopters above. And he's talking to the suspect. Rick, a hairdresser gets more training than a cop, and they have to cut hair, and that's very dangerous and hard. You're a freaking idiot.
Over the suspect on the bicycle.
Right.
Hey, you're going to be overhead. Everything's over Madison and...
I loved working. I asked, there was a auto theft. They had all the units blocked off in Gainesville. I might have done a video, and I stopped, and the cop was there, and I was bullshitting with him. And I asked him I wanted to give him a drink because it was hot, and he was sitting there smoking because I figured they had a perimeter. And I've been out there, and I've done there, and it sucks. You can't leave. You don't, whatever. And he's like, yeah, man, I use some water. So I went over and got the guy a glass of water at the Dairy Queen and brought it over to him, was bullshitting with him. And I was like, man, you guys been out here all this time? You can't get an air unit out here to find... He looked at me and went, an air unit? He goes, man, we never had an air unit here. I go, no shit, you got a felony auto theft and the guy ran and you can't get an air unit? And he was like looking at me like, where the fuck are you from? And I guess to me, being in big cities, you know, we always had air units. I mean, it was nothing to get an air unit if we had a felony in progress running or something. Either a chopper was in the air and he wasn't doing nothing, so he would come over. And so many agencies had choppers in California, it was almost like, shit, the only agencies that didn't have it were the small agencies. Any large agency has helicopters. So, and shit, I think in LA, they might have a fleet of freaking 20 helicopters. Ain't no telling how many damn helicopters they got.
Madison, north of Monroe.
Now, there's going to be somebody here who wants to show their experience and great knowledge. Say, you don't know what you're talking about. You weren't even a cop. They should have just backed off and let the air unit follow them. Well, they could have done that. The air unit is there, and there's an argument to be made that, look, we got an air unit, just follow the guy. But if you do that and then he ditches evidence, or he ends up taking a hostage, or he gets in a neighborhood and he runs in some house and he takes a lady and kid hostage, or he shoots them as he comes through because they're like, hey, what are you doing in my house? And he doesn't want to get, you know, when you prolong and you don't stop a guy as soon as you can, you risk much more chaos down the road. So there's an argument for either way. Yeah, they could have just followed him in a helicopter and not done anything, and I'm sure all the pink panties would love for that. But you know what? It also costs a lot of money and resources to follow crooks instead of just catching them and taking them into custody.
Possibly armed suspect failing to comply.
So we have a possible armed suspect failing to comply. This tells me that these guys have been involved in this and they really don't understand exactly what the crime is. So it could be that these guys got jumped into the conversation because they saw a unit run by code 3 and the bike made a quick turn, and now they're primary and they're right behind the guy. And they weren't paying attention to radio, because when you work in a busy area with a lot of radio traffic, you tend to tune out. That's why when you break radio traffic, you always say who you're calling first and then who you are. You never say who you are, because it's just natural over time. You get muscle memory and your ears are hearing to where it's just standard that if I don't hear my call sign the first thing when that radio breaks squelch, then I ignore the call. So unless, I would hear traffic, David 2, 4 David 7, whatever, Mary units, whatever. I'd hear all this shit and I would disregard it unless when that radio was quiet and it broke and it said 721, and then I knew my call sign and I knew it was me. That's why when you break radio traffic, you always say the call sign you're calling first, because that is more likely to get their attention and they will hear their own call sign. Because cops, over time, you just ignore the radio. So these guys were probably ignoring this and said, hey, shit, it ain't our call. We don't give a shit. Let's continue to eat our donuts. Holy shit, there's a unit running code 3 chasing a bike. Damn, the bike's in front of us now. Shit, we're behind it. So that could have been why they're like, so we have an armed suspect felony. That could have been the answer. It could have been he wanted to clarify that he's kind of rationalizing and getting his partner's feedback. Okay, so we have an armed suspect. This is a felony. Failing to comply, he's fleeing. He's trying to justify and invoke the fleeing felon rule. Is he a fleeing violent? He should have got in there fleeing violent felon, and in order to get violent in there, he should have. So we have an armed suspect that just brandished a gun and tried to commit a violent crime on another person, and now he's fleeing. That would have been a better way to phrase that question if he's saying it to get feedback.
You want to get this beanbag ready, bro? Yeah.
So now they're making a plan. Hey, man, you want to get the beanbag, less lethal. And now he's going to say, I'm going to take a lethal. So again, not only are they chasing siren, all the other shit I just mentioned that's going on, now they're basically establishing duties or assigning who has what responsibilities in the middle of all this chaos before they jump out and take this guy into custody. Okay, I don't know if I would call this guy a 415. Okay, following a 415 man with a gun, at least he said man with a gun, I'm okay. 415 in the California Penal Code is disturbing the peace. This guy's not disturbing the peace. I would be saying I'm following a 211 suspect. 211 is robbery, an armed robbery, and now he's got a gun. Now we have a violent felony. When you say following a 415, 415 is normally a misdemeanor. But if he brandishes a gun, maybe in a 415, maybe it's a felony. You don't want to go with a lower crime when you're about to use force. You want to say, hey, my mindset was this guy just tried to rob somebody according to caller. He pulled a gun and asked for things. That's armed robbery. That's a violent felony. And now he's fleeing. That's the way, as a cop, you want to be thinking on the fly. So when you articulate it later, when you write your report and when they pull the video, it's very clear. But that needs to become habit and learned over time and experience on how to articulate things like that on the fly.
Cool. I got contact and lethal, bro. You got less lethal.
Okay, so he's LA is big on that. California's kind of big on that. Contact cover. Whoever the contact officer is, he goes hands on. Whoever the cover officer is, he stands back and covers the officer. He doesn't talk. He doesn't ask questions. And, you know, I've done many videos where it pissed me off that a cover officer starts getting involved in investigation and running his mouth, escalating it, and then the contact officer ends up taking extra paper because the cover officer couldn't keep his mouth shut. But I digress.
You gonna beanbag him? Yeah. No,
I'm gonna beanbag him? No. I'm gonna. And he's kind of like, no. He's afraid to say that I'm going to use the car to knock him over. This is what I'm thinking. I could be wrong, but I'm just taking a guess here. In his mind, he's like, damn, I don't want to say I want to run him over, but I'm going to use the car to stop him, but I don't know how to say it, and I think that's why he's stuttering. He's not stuttering because he doesn't know what he's going to do. I think he's stuttering because he doesn't want to say the wrong thing.
Virgil, Madison. Virgil, normal.
And again, anytime there's things like this, very common for cops to yell out directions. It's just the way they're programmed. When they get on scene, they want to be in control, they start hollering directions. So when you have multiple cops involved and you have multiple directions given, you need to learn, I don't listen to what people are saying. I do what I know I can do, I'm justified to do, and I'm lawfully able to do. That's what I do. That comes with experience. Young guys will get caught up in all these cops yelling, do this, do this, do this, do this, and they do it. And then the music stops and they're the only one without a chair, and they're like, well, I thought I heard somebody tell me. You know you can't blame it on someone else. Take responsibility. Just because somebody said it, you didn't have to do it. You chose to do it, and it's your decision, and you're responsible. And that's how that plays out. These cops give this guy multiple opportunities, way too many in my book, to pull over, which is good. I would always rather the cops do more on the side of trying everything they can before they have to use physical or deadly force.
Get him.
So the other guys, get him. Yeah, because you're not going to have to be the one that said you got him. You're not the one that's going to have to face the music when he runs him over. So it's easy for this officer to say, get him. I'm not saying the officer that's saying that is bad or incompetent or it's just natural for him to say, come on, man, you're right there. Man, if I was driving, I would have done that. Well, you know what? Next time you're driving, then you can do that. Right now, I'm freaking driving.
Pull over!
This guy tried a lot to get this guy to stop. Sirens, tried to cut him off, now pulled next to him and yelled at him numerous times. Oops. Hey, dude, you all right? Yo, man, I'm sorry you ran into my car door. I was just opening the door so we could talk and we could hear. I didn't mean to hit you. That was an accident. Okay, so I'm thinking this orange thing or orange strap is probably the non-lethal that the guy came out. This cops take him into custody. They turn him over. They handcuff him, and you hear other cops saying, all right, we got him. Which is what I like to see on scenes, because that tells me the cops are aware that we don't need to use more force. Everybody's watching. Don't anybody lose their freaking shit and start beating the shit out of this dude. Let's do the minimum force necessary and stop. This is good on this video.
Hey, what do you think you fucking did, homie?
Now, this guy gets caught. Well, I called everybody homie when I was working. Yo, homie, what's up? I work with a lot of Mexican gangs, so homie is a very common, yo, Holmes, what's up? What's up, homie? So this guy's like, what do you think you did, homie?
Easy. We got it.
Okay, we got him. They call in code 4. Everyone stands back. Nobody's kicking. Nobody's dogpiling. Nobody's teaching this guy a lesson, a street lesson. I'll teach you to run from the cops. These cops did a good job. I know the people that think I should hate all cops aren't going to like that, but I'm sorry. These cops did a good job, and I'm happy with the way they handled this. All right, we'll end that there.